B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Baruch Hashem. We have some new people today. I was actually expecting one other guy from our Facebook group. We have, Baruch Hashem, a Facebook group that we just post Shiur Torah, my Shiur Torah, my cousins, Rabbi Mizrahi's, Rabbi Zamir Cohen's, just purely Shiur Torah. Once in a while you have someone in the group trying to advertise for their business, so we delete it immediately, but so we try to keep it exclusively Shiur Torah, have at least one part of Facebook clean. And Baruch Hashem, we started with nothing about a year ago. We have over 1,800 members today. And which, of course, in comparison to the groups that are shtuyot, like sports and other things in life, obviously they have millions or tens of thousands, but for Torah, 1,800 is considered okay. So one of the guys was actually supposed to show up today, and maybe he still will. He's from about an hour away from here. Maybe he'll come. But either way, we have some good developments. Some people are doing tshuva. They make some. They either write emails or make comments or call. And Baruch Hashem, the YouTube videos are really having a great amount of success in comparison to what I really originally thought. I mean, originally I put the Facebook videos on, not necessarily because I thought they were going to be very popular, just because it was another way for me to show my friends and family what I'm doing.
Lisa.
And now that you see, after almost a year of doing videos, you see how it's helped some people's lives, not just here, but also people online, people from far away, some people from Africa, some people from Israel, some people from the United States, from different places, places that you would never imagine that you could reach. Someone is making a comment from the United Kingdom saying, each week almost, how much they're enjoying the shiurim and they're doing tshuva. It's very encouraging. It's very encouraging. The reason why I mention that is because one of the biggest things that is part of a Jew's life is emunah. And the problem with today's world is that most people have, referring to Jews, some form of emunah, but not necessarily emunah shlema. And there's a very, very big difference between emunah and emunah shlema, meaning emunah shlema is a complete faith in God. What's the difference? Emunah is what anyone that believes in God, follows some of His laws, maybe doesn't even, but says he believes, he kisses the mezuzah every time he remembers. Okay, he has some level of emunah. From 1 to 100, he could have, 10, 20, 5. Emunah shlema is someone like some of these tzaddikim that you hear about even in our own generation, where they study Torah all day, so they don't work, they don't have any form of compensation whatsoever, but they go to the supermarket and buy groceries with no money. Meaning they have no money in their pocket. There's one particular person I'm referring to. He went to the supermarket with no money whatsoever, on a regular basis each week, to get his groceries, without shortchanging, without thinking, maybe I should get 1 egg, maybe I should get 2 eggs, maybe only half a loaf of bread. No! Whatever you need for Shabbat, you get for Shabbat. And Shabbat is oneg. Shabbat is celebration. The Kadosh Baruch Hu, He sends the malachim to my house. Of course I'm going to have celebration. So he brings Shalom Aleichem. Abenu. So, someone that has full emunah is going to that same store with no money and no care in the world and no second thought about whether he's going to have an issue paying for it or not. Nissan, if you want to wait after the shiur, there probably, I would assume that most people, including myself, haven't done Alvit. We could do it together, maybe have a minyan, if you want. So before I forget, which something I mentioned earlier today, Be'ezrat Hashem, this shiur will be for the benefit of the health of Eden Malka Bat Ravit El Makis. only a 2-month-old baby, a 2-week-old baby that we were told is in a very critical condition. I don't know the details. I know Ruby. I know I know his wife, but we don't really know the details. She's only a couple of weeks old, and Be'ezrat Hashem, the part of the schut of the Shiur Torah and the Torah that we all learned today will not only be to help us, but also to help her get refuah shlema soon. Be'ezrat Hashem. Ruby actually is a very nice guy. He's actually one of the people it's the first person I met in this community and helped me when I actually came to visit the community. He connected me with some other people and really was very encouraging in our move to this community. So Be'ezrat Hashem, I hope that their daughter and their entire family have refuah shlema. Also, all of Am Yisrael may have refuah shlema. Be'ezrat Hashem, all of the babies.
Miriam bat Gittel.
Miriam bat Gittel.
And Svega Sarah bat
Chaya. Bracha Chaya. Be'ezrat Hashem will have refuah shlema, and my own daughter, Be'ezrat Hashem, will have refuah shlema. Levana, Sarah bat Levana, she's doesn't feel too well, but Be'ezrat Hashem she'll be very well soon. And all of Am Yisrael, Be'ezrat Hashem, will have refuah shlema. So today, Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to learn some things about emunah. We're going to learn some things about the Parashat, and we'll learn some other things that are connecting all of these issues to our life and see how we can improve. And that's generally the point of every shiur. The point of every shiur that we do is not necessarily to learn a nice story and hopefully you're entertained for 2 hours or an hour or as long as I can keep you awake, but hopefully, the purpose of every shiur is that if I can get you even 1% closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then we did something here. But if you come here and you leave here the same, then I failed at my job miserably. If you come here and you leave shaken up, I did good. If you come here and your connection or disconnect, chas v'chalila, is very much the same, then I failed. So hopefully, with Siyata Deshmaya, we'll have some success in learning some things that will shake us up. And according to Tomer's request, he may want me to include some scary stuff, so I'm not so sure if I'm going to listen or not. It all depends if I have to wake him up or not.
Can we do another with refuah shlema for
Refuah
my
shlema?
girlfriend's father?
What's the name?
Yosef ben
Refuah shlema Yosef?
Yanomi.
Yosef ben Yanomi. Be'ezrat Hashem have refuah shlema. So, emunah is something that's not easy to get. It's not like a Coca-Cola can that you go and you put $1 or $1.50 these days, and you buy it, you have it, you're done. It's not something like you put your tefillin every morning, you put your talit, you do some mitzvot, you keep some Shabbat, that means you have emunah. Some people are born religious, into a religious community, and they not only don't have emunah, they don't even have a belief that Hashem even exists. But they do everything, like robots. How could it be? Because emunah is not something that comes naturally to people. Emunah is something you have to work on. And work on daily. Just like you feed your body daily in order for it to be sustained. Just like some people exercise every day to maintain a certain level of health, of healthy body. Sometimes people will learn something or do something in order to succeed, whether it's in business or in personal. But you see that the most successful people in anything usually have a routine, and they usually do this routine on a daily basis. The people that are the most successful in physical fitness usually work out almost every day, if not every day. The people that are usually the healthiest as far as other ways, they make sure that they watch their diet every day, not just 3 days a week. The people that are most successful in business tend to have a brain that is connected to their business on a regular basis. There's a routine. Emunah is no different. Emunah is something that you have to work on a regular basis. And one of the ways that we can help ourselves have more emunah is by understanding what we're even doing. If everything that we're doing, whether it's our prayer, or the anachat tefillin, or putting the talit, or or doing any type of mitzvah whatsoever, even just doing shakol on this cup of tea, if it just becomes mundane and it becomes routine, then it not only doesn't really serve its purpose, but it actually becomes our own poison when it comes to emunah. If I say, Baruch atah Hashem shakol niyeh midvaro, in a quick way, what am I saying really? I'm doing something that someone told me that I need to do, and I'm doing it. Like a little kid in school. The teacher told him to be quiet, so he was quiet from 3 to 3:45. 3:45 he became an animal again. He didn't do it because he thought that it's important for him to be quiet. He did it because someone told him to be quiet. So the same thing. I said, Baruch atah Hashem, Adonai melech haolam, I finished the bracha, done. I put the tefillin, 10 minutes later, I'm done with the prayer, done. Even an hour later, it doesn't matter. The time is not necessarily the importance. The kavanah is the importance. So one of the things that we've talked about in the past is anytime you bless any type of food that's not bread, obviously, break up the bracha into 3. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, shakol, or borei pnei adama, or whatever the prayer is. Why break it up to 3? When you break it up into 3, it at least gives you some time to think about what you're saying. And if you really think about the blessing, that can become your fuel for the emunah. If you think about what you're doing when you're doing tefillin, if you think about what you're doing when you put the talit, if you think about what you're doing when you're keeping Shabbat, if you really think about what you're doing, that can connect you to God. But if it becomes regular and robotic, you're no different than the little boy that stopped talking at 3 o'clock and went back to his ways at 3:45. So when you think about shakol, what am I really saying here? I'm saying that literally everything is his creation. Who's he? Oh, it's he that's causing me to do this, but everything else. And you have to think about Hashem. And that's the difference between us and people like Moshe Rabbeinu, people like Avraham Avinu, people like Rabbi Akiva. I once heard from my cousin, it's my chavruta, when I first started, that the greatness about Moshe Rabbeinu and people similar to him, that our avot, our forefathers, is that they literally thought about God all the time, 24 hours a day. But I don't mean thought about God like, oh, I wonder if this Gemara means this or this. Not just that. Of course that. But even more so. Take one step, thank you God for giving me the ability to take one step. Take another step, thank you God for giving my body the ability to function in a certain way, to take the second step. Breathe air, thank you God for that. Baruch haba. Breathe in, breathe out. Eat something or drink something. Every single step that they took in their life, they connected it to God. They connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when you connect it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he becomes part of you, it's very easy to have emunah in him. But when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is this mythical figure that's far, far away, that maybe if I pray really, really, really hard, he'll answer me, it's very hard to have emunah. Very hard to have emunah. Because he's so far away. I can only get to him if I try really hard. Now, of course, when you first start everything I just told you, in the beginning it will be hard. In the beginning it will take some time, some getting used to, just like anything else in life. But if you have more kavanah in everything that we do, Hashem becomes part of you. You become one in essence with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when you become one with something, it's no longer believing in Him. It's knowing Him. And that's in essence the goal of every Jew. So one of the other goals that every Jew has is to not only have emunah in Hashem. Why do we have emunah in Hashem? But to have His blessing. You see people all over the world chasing different rabbis, some that are qualified, some not so much, to get brachot. Give me a blessing. Sometimes you have these, unfortunately, naive people that invite strange old men that call themselves tzaddikim into communities, and they tell you, oh, a tzaddik is coming to the town. The guy barely knows 3 halachot. But he looks old, he has a beard. People don't know better. He goes like this, sells them some, I don't know, strings or weird medallions, and they think that, or water, and they think that, oh, I got a bracha from the tzaddik, everything's going to be fine now. Tomorrow I can continue with being a mechalet Shabbat, because this guy's got me covered. It's nonsense. Our naivety and the fact of how we're almost forcing ourselves to believe in these shortcuts is not only leading to our own doom, but it's also facilitating these crooks. Now let's say we eliminated the crooks, Be'ezrat Hashem. Let's say every rabbi is who he says he is. And even more so. Let's say we will have access to a rabbi from, not just now, but from 500 years ago. From 1,000 years ago. Rambam. Let's say, if you say, listen, if I get enough money, or if I do certain things, make certain arrangements, I could get the Rambam to come to my house, or come to my community and give me a bracha. I bet you'd work really hard to get it, right? It's Rambam. Even the Goyim know that Rambam is a big rabbi. They have him in Washington, D.C. as a statue. They say he's one of the 18 most important people that ever lived. If we go further, and we go to another famous rabbi, even more so, Rabbi Meir Balanes. Every Moroccan household loves, or a house from Tripoli loves Rabbi Meir Balanes. Rabbi Meir Balanes, Rabbi Meir, the miracle worker in English. Everyone loves him. They know some of the stories about him. They like miracles. He's a big tzaddik. He's got a big schut. If I told you, if you work hard enough to make certain arrangements, whether it's monetary or otherwise, you can get a bracha from Rabbi Meir. You do it. If we go even further to his teacher, Rabbi Akiva, same thing, right? Even more. We go back to David HaMelech. Even more. Even back more. We go to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, come to my community? Sell my house for Moshe Rabbeinu. Avraham Avinu. What's the point? People are constantly chasing the blessings of man. But in the first verse of this parasha, you have something even better. See, I present before you a blessing and a curse. Hashem himself is telling you, you want a blessing? You don't need the rabbi only. You're blessing for me. Can you get a blessing better than Hashem? He's telling you, all right, you want a blessing? Yeah, I'll give you a blessing. But I'm also giving you a curse. Lama curse. את הברכה אשר תשמעו אל מצוות אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר אנוכי מצווה אתכם היום. The blessing that you hearken, meaning you listen and follow to the commandments of Hashem your God, that I command you today. If you do what God says, you have a blessing. Blessing from Hashem. That means a blessing with zivug. That means blessings with work. That means blessing with this world. That means blessings in the next world. That means endless reward. All of the rabbis we just mentioned, as great as they are, they're not Hashem. All of them, in order for them to even be able to give you a blessing, it's not like they're giving you a blessing. It's not like Rabbi Meir is really actually giving you the blessing. what you're asking Rabbi Meir when you go to his grave, or what you're asking Rabbi Akiva when you go to his grave, or what you're asking even Moshe Rabbeinu, which we don't know where his grave is, what are you asking? You're asking them to help you out a little bit, because they have some extra schuyot, they have extra good deeds. You know, not so much. Me, not so much at least. So help me out a little bit. You have extra. I don't have enough. I'll honor you by learning your Torah, learning your books, mentioning your name, publicizing it. I'll do something for you, and in essence, you'll do something for me in return. What is that something in return? You're going to talk to Hashem for me. You're closer to Him than I am. So Hashem says, you don't even need that. You want a blessing? Come trade to me. You want a blessing? Here. Just Parashat Re'eh, which means see. Re'eh means see. To explain to us today, 3,300 and somewhat years later, they didn't say Re'eh for no reason. They didn't say see for no reason. They're trying to explain to you that it's obvious. You don't need to go so far to get a blessing. You don't need to go so far to connect to God. You don't need to go so far to search for the truth. You want something, talk to God. You could talk to Him here. You could talk to Him in the Beit Knesset. You could talk to Him anywhere, with the exception of places that you're not allowed, like the bathroom and things of such. But overall, you could talk to Him anywhere. In the Beit Knesset, at work, in the car. You want a blessing? Do what He says. If you don't want to do what He says, then He tells you something else. והכללה, אם לא תשמעו אל מצוות אדוני אלוהיכם, וסרתם מן הדרך אשר אנוכי מצווה אתכם. But if you don't want the blessing, he's saying, if you don't want the blessing, well, let's say you have too many blessings. You're rich with blessings. You have money, you have this, you have that. You think you have everything. You don't want His blessing. Hashem, no, you know what? I don't need your blessing. I got too much.
Too much pride.
I got too much. So you don't want to do what He says. He says, okay, you don't want to do what I say. Fine. Then you're not going to get the blessing. But there's no such thing as you don't get the blessing and that's it. What Hashem is telling us here, it's one or the other. It's either the blessing or the curse. He's saying, if you don't want my blessing, then you get the curse. If you do not listen to the commandments of Hashem, your God, and you stray away from the path that I command you today, to follow other gods of others that you do not know, then you get the curse. So now you're going to say to yourself, wait a minute, it just said something over here. The first, it said something, follow other gods. No, Baruch Hashem, I don't do idol worship. I don't believe in JC. I don't believe in Buddha. I don't believe in all of these strange idol worship, so that means I'm okay. Unfortunately, the good news is, yes, on that part you're okay. On that part we're okay. Most people do not have direct idol worship, at least not Jews. The problem is that there's many things that are equivalent to idol worship. Someone that's a mechalel Shabbat, same thing as idol worshiper. Both of them are not considered Jewish. Both of them disconnect themselves completely from God. Both of them cannot be counted as part of the minyan. You have 10 people, one guy is a mechalel Shabbat, you now have 9 people. You have 11 people, 10 are awake, but one of them is a mechalel Shabbat. The number 11 is a shomer Shabbat, but he's sleeping. He counts as a minyan, the mechalel Shabbat does not count as a minyan. So that's one form of idol worship. Another form of idol worship, not obviously like mechalel Shabbat, is even having anger. Someone that has anger or ga'ava, pride, can be considered as if the equivalent of someone that's idol worshipping. Why? Because if someone has ga'ava, if someone has pride, how do you connect? How does Chazal, Masechet Sotah, and many other places say that someone that has ga'ava, someone that has pride, it's the same thing as someone that's idol worshipping? How could it be? How could it be? Okay, listen, I know the guy's conceited. He's not so nice. Even his wife doesn't like him. I get it. He's not such a nice guy. He thinks who he is. I got it. But idol worship, you're saying that this guy is the same thing as the guy that's bought a statue from Chinatown for $15 and now is praying to him? He's the same thing as this moron? How could it be? This guy's not nice. This guy's a moron. It's two different things. How could it be? Chazal explains to us, if we have true emunah, if we have true connection to Hashem, then that means that we have to connect everything to the source, everything to Him. Which means that someone that has pride doesn't believe that the source is beyond him. Doesn't believe that the parnasah comes from Shamayim. He believes he made the parnasah. Doesn't believe that Hashem gave him his good health, his money, his success in any way, one way or another. He doesn't believe that there's a source. He believes he did it himself. And he believes he's also better than other people. Everyone else is beneath him. So there's two forms of idol worship here. One, he's in essence treating himself as a god, because he believes that he's in essence the source, rather than the source himself. But the worst part, the insulting part, is that he's taking credit for something he didn't do. Baruch haba. He's taking credit. There's a seat right here. Come here, right here. Oh, okay. So imagine I come to your office, or your factory, or something else, and I go into, say, hey, how you doing? I pass by you as if you don't exist. I go into your payroll department, tell, okay, can you show me the checkbook? Shows me the checkbook. She thinks I'm some supervisor. Tell, how much money do we have in the bank? And she tells me how much money you have in the bank. I say, okay, just write me the check for everything. Everything we have in the bank, just give it to me. Why? Why should I give it to you? Like, no, just give it to me. Don't worry about it. Just give it to me. Why? Everything that's here, I'm responsible for it. So what's she going to do? She's going to call you. And after she calls you, you're going to say, we're responsible. I just met you last week for the first time. What are you talking about responsible? You didn't do anything. I made all this money. I built the factory. I built the store. I hired the employees. I fire. I hire. I invented. I did everything that I did. You didn't do anything. But I came into your store and I said I want the credit for everything that you did. Le'avdil from you wanting credit from Hashem. Or you wanting credit for something that you did that really Hashem is giving you. That's another reason of why Gava is another form of idol worship, and it's also one of the ways to destroy your connection with Hashem. So, we mentioned a lot of things that we don't want to do, that we shouldn't do, and there's a lot of things that are bad to do, because generally it's easier to, and more critical, to stop doing something than to add something. Sometimes people will add small things, like putting up a mezuzah in their house, or doing, I don't know, maybe reading a Tehillim once or twice a week. But when it comes to the foundation of Judaism, whether it be Shabbat or kosher or modesty or countless other things that are important, not so much. So one of the things we need to understand is that we have to first stop doing the significantly bad things, and over time add some of the small and even big things. But it's more important to stop doing the bad things. So after this, we're moving on into what else is really idol worship? One of the things that causes a lot of people to run away from the Torah is that they don't think it's relevant to today. They think that it's ancient. They think that it's just some book that some guy wrote 3,000 years ago. It's not so, has nothing to do with us today. And that's one of the things we try to prove otherwise. Because the beauty of the Torah is that one thing we know for sure is that not only is it relevant to today, and has prophecies that are relevant to today, that are coming true in front of our eyes, but even more than that, if you look at every week's parasha, you will find something that's relevant to your personal life at the time that you're reading it. So, one of the things, when he's talking about idol worship, we ask him, okay, so what do we do with this idol worship? What do we do with it? So Hashem says, "V'nitatztem et mizbechotam v'shibartem et matzevotam ve'ashrehem tisrefun ba'esh u'pesirei Elohim tegadeon." Says, you shall smash their pillars. You shall break apart their altars. You shall smash their pillars, and their sacred trees you shall burn in the fire. Their carved images shall you cut down, and you shall obliterate their names from that place. Once again, what we learned a couple of weeks ago in Parashat Vayetchanan is that the two most popular ways to stray from Hashem are the religions of Christianity, Catholicism as one, and Islam being the other. Most people believe that the Torah doesn't have anything relating to them, because the Torah precedes them. Torah is nearly 1,500 years before Christianity, almost 2,000 years before Catholicism, and they claim to have the continuation of our book. None of them disagree with our book. They all say that our book, our Torah, is real, but they have a continuation. So one interesting thing here is that when it's talking about idol worship, it's specifically talking about smashing pillars, which again, anything that's written in Torah in every single verse is eternally relevant. How do we know this? In Masechet Megillah, it talks about how there were over 1 million prophets in Am Yisrael. There was more than double the amount of prophets throughout our history as the amount of men that left Mitzrayim between the ages of 20 and 60. We know that that number is 600,000, so if it says more than double, that means that at least 1.2 million prophets, Nevi'im, in the history of Am Yisrael. There's only one problem. Only 48 men that are prophets are mentioned, and 7 females. So there's 55 total that are mentioned in the Torah. We're missing a few. We have 1.2 million at least that Hashem Yitbarach is telling us we had, but we only have stories about 55 of them. What, the other guys weren't interesting? What happened? The answer is, in Masechet Megillah, it says, all of the prophecies that everyone made were relevant to a certain time. If it was relevant to their time only, it was not published. Meaning, it was not written in the Torah. Meaning that everything that the others wrote, the remaining 55 that we have their writing, is not only relevant to their time, it's relevant eternally. And even more so, if it's written from the prophet of all prophets, which is Moshe Rabbeinu, of course it's eternally relevant. So we know that every single sentence in every single parasha is going to have something that's relevant eternally. In this sentence it says you smash their pillars. What religion has pillars? What religion has stone? Islam. And it says you burn their sacred trees. What religion has sacred trees? It's not Islam, it's Christianity. Right? But still, sometimes when you tell this to people, they say, nah, it's maybe there was another religion in those days that had stones, and another religion that had strange sacred trees. Okay, so we have to rewind 2 weeks. We go to Parashat Ve'etchanan, verse 4:27-28. והפיץ אדוני אתכם בעמים ונשארתם מתי מספר בגויים אשר ינהג אדוני אתכם שמה ועבדתם שם אלוהים מעשה ידי אדם עץ ואבן אשר לא יראון ולא ישמעון ולא יאכלון ולא יריחון. Hashem will scatter you. This is, he's telling Am Yisrael that's sinning, that's going after we sin. This is the punishment. After we don't get the blessing. After we decide we don't want the blessing, we want the other one. He says, okay, this is the other one. He's already telling us here. Before he even tells us there's a blessing and a curse, he's already telling us what the other one is. If you don't want the blessing, okay, this is the other one. This is the other choice. Hashem will scatter you amongst the people, and you will be left few in number among the nations where Hashem will lead you. There you will serve gods, the handiwork of man, of wood and stone, which do not see, and do not hear, and do not eat, and do not smell. So he's telling us in literal, you don't need Rashi for this, you don't need Rambam, you don't need the Gemara. He's literally telling you that you'll worship other gods, you'll have idol worship, but what kind of other gods? It's the handiwork of man, meaning it's idol worship. And what kind of handiwork of man? Of wood and stone. What religion has wood?
Cross.
Christianity, the cross. What religion has stone? Mecca, right? Islam. Big stone in Mecca. They don't have Jerusalem in the Quran, by the way. Anyone ever wonder, why are the Palestinians fighting so much for Jerusalem? Why are the Arabs fighting so much for Jerusalem? We don't know. Other than the fact that they hate Jews, we don't know why they're fighting for it. Because in their own Quran, it doesn't mention Jerusalem once. So if it's the holy city, how come it doesn't mention it once? So when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, one of the guys in the shiur, he asked me, okay, fine, I understand. Idol worship, fine. God of wood and stone, fine. It's interesting, it's cute. But maybe again, the same question that we had in this week's parasha. Maybe there was a different form, similar religion that had wood. Different wood. They did trees and all types of stuff. And they had stones. Maybe their religion was throwing stones at each other or something. How do you know? What is it? Well, that means, it has to mean Islam and it has to mean Christianity. So then there's something called Torah codes. Torah codes are very, very interesting. I don't delve too much into it. I happen to know this one because this particular verse has a personal connection to my whole tshuva and so on over the years. There's probably a few other ones that I know, but the point is that this particular gematria, this particular code, is one of the most extraordinary that I know, at least. For anyone who doesn't know what Torah codes is, briefly, Torah codes is finding hidden language within the Torah by using math and having a equal mathematical skip, this equal distance between each letters to spell different words that are relevant to a certain subject. So, for example, if you want to find the word Hitler, then you go into a computer program and you type the word Hitler in Hebrew, obviously, and it'll show you all the places where there's because Hitler is obviously not part of the Tanakh, Baruch Hashem, but he's part of our history. So no one was called Hitler in the Tanakh. But you'll find Hitler in several places, and you'll see that in some of these places, you'll see that there is a minimal mathematical skip. There's only 7 letter skips equal, so the Hey, 7 letters, the next letter, the Tet, 7 letters, Lamed, 7 letters, Resh, 7 letters. It's an equal mathematical skip. Now if it's Hey, 550, Tet, 550, and so on, it's all 500, it's not as significant. It looks more random. But if it's a small amount, like 7 or 10 or 50 even, out of 304,000 letters, you see that there is a method behind the madness, if you will. More so, if you see that the words that you're asking for and finding are not only in small mathematical skips, but they're also in a place in the Torah, in a page in the Torah, and even in a paragraph and a verse in the Torah that has to do with that subject. Then you see that this is not coincidence. Then you see this is not the equivalent of finding random words in the book of Harry Potter or Fiddler on the Roof. Then you see that there's a system here. So for example, all of the words that are relating to the Shoah, to the Holocaust, you will find them in one parasha. Not only one parasha, one main page that talks about the punishment of Hashem acting as if He's no longer there for us. As a punishment for what we did, assimilation and so on. So you see all of the leaders, the main leaders of Yimach Shemam, the Nazis, the words for gas chamber, the different cities that they had, the concentration camps, many, many words on one page in the Torah. So in this particular verse in Parashat Vayitchanan, the one that we just read, not only will you find something interesting here with equal mathematical skips, but you find something here that I believe, and I think anyone with an objective mind could easily see. It's not that this is as obvious as it can be, that the Torah could never be the work of man. In this verse, or these two verses, that are talking about the God of a false God, the God that's handiwork of man, the God of wood and the God of stone, you'll both find the name Yeshu, which is in Hebrew for Jesus, and you'll find Mecca, which is the most important place for Islam. Let's say the words start with, for example, for Yeshu, it's the first word, Vayefitz. That's where you find the Yud, 49 letters. Shin, 49 letters. You end with, that's in the word Shama. You end it with another 49 letters, you get to Yishmeun, which is, you get the word Yeshu. And then you go back for Mecca. Also Yishmeun is with the Mem, 49 letters. Etchem, and then go back to Efitz. Same words beginning, same words end. The only difference is the two words in between from the two. So in case anyone was wondering or debating whether this God of stone or God of wood could be something different in those two religions, I think this is as obvious as it can get, as a message from Hashem Yitbarach telling us that He's allowing these religions, in His essence, is almost like a form of punishment.
You know what's interesting is the 49, when Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, we were on the 49th level of Tumah, and He had to take us out to the 50th, so it's 49 and then a letter 49, 49.
Yeah, Chazak Baruch. That's why also those religions are considered the 49th level of Tumah. That's why when you have a righteous convert come from that religion, that's part of the reason why they're considered in a higher level spiritually than a natural born Jew. A natural born Jew, even if they're a tzaddik, even if they're doing all the mitzvot, they're not on the same level as someone that's a righteous convert. Why? Because the tzaddik, he was born that way. They didn't ask him to be born into a Jewish family or not. He was born Jewish. Meaning that part of the choice was not his. The convert, on the other hand, chose to go to Hashem, knowing the consequences, knowing that there is a huge sacrifice that converts make when they convert. So, again, when Hashem is telling us that these idol worships in several places in the Torah, we see how relevant it is to our day-to-day life, because most of the people in the world are not Jewish. They're either Christian or they're from Islam. So the Rambam asked, why did Hashem let this happen? Or someone asked the Rambam, better said. Why did Hashem let this happen? How come Hashem made the majority of the world different religions? Why didn't He make the majority of the world Jews? Well, first we learn about it in this week's Parashat, where He says that we're not going to necessarily be a large quantity as part of our punishment, but even more so, even though technically Islam is not considered idol worship, it's still a very problematic religion, because part of their practice is to kill Jews. So, question is, why did Hashem let this happen? The answer is that when the Mashiach comes, it will no longer be a question of who's the Mashiach or not. It will no longer be a question of what's the right Torah and what's not. No longer be a question of what's the right religion or not. There will no longer be that question, which means that all of these other religions, as it says by some of the prophets talk about it, will see that the only God is the God of the Jews. The only religion is the religion of the Jews, and they're each going to grab the tzitziot of the Jews. 700 Gentiles for every corner, meaning that every Jew that wears a tzitzit will have 2,800 talmidim, 2,800 servants that are also his talmidim, that he's going to be responsible to teach them Torah. How is this relevant to Islam and Christianity? Because Islam and Christianity allowed God to bring monotheism, meaning the belief in one God, to the world other than Judaism. Partly as a test, but partly as a way for the Gentiles to get used to the concept of one God. So when eventually they know there's only one way to truly worship Him, it's going to be an easy conversion for them. Because they're already used to the concept of worshiping one God, they just worshiped in the wrong way. They celebrated Ramadan instead of Yom Kippur. They celebrated Christmas instead of Pesach. It's a little different. A lot of difference, but the point is that when you go from outright idol worship, where you used to worship rats, like I showed you guys a few months ago, how there's places in India that they worship rats, to go from that to Hashem, big change. Probably not going to be possible. Not for most of those people. But to go from a place, if the person is a righteous person, but is just making an honest mistake, it's an easier conversion. And that's the reason why Hashem made that happen.
Worship rats.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's people that worship
India,
rats. There's people that worship rats. What can you do? What can you do?
All over.
So now, before I said something about how we could find something that's relevant to the world in each week's Parashat, this is not exactly the greatest news of all, but it also is another way to prove how the Torah is divine. So after Hashem is telling us that we have to destroy these idol worship places, He says, you shall not do this to Hashem your God. Lo ta'asun ken la'Adonai Elohechem. כי אם אל המקום אשר יבחר אדוני אלוהיכם מכל שבטיכם לשום את שמו שם לשכנו תדרשו ובאת שמה. You shall not do this to Hashem your God, rather only at the place that Hashem your God will choose from among all your tribes to place His name there. Shall you seek out His presence and come there. So He's telling us two things in this message. Number one, He's telling us that you can't do karbanot, can't do sacrifices anywhere you want. That's one thing He's saying. But in the first verse, He's saying that you will not do this to the places of God, to your God. And one of the Pirushim is that He's referring to the treatment of holy places. of holy places that you have, like for example the Kotel. You can't go to the Kotel and chip off a rock and take it home. There's actually a story of a guy that did that one time. A guy had a very sick wife, and he was not Jewish. And his friend who was Jewish, he was not religious, he told him, listen, you're going to Israel, do me a favor. Give me a piece of that wall of yours, and I'll give it to my wife. Maybe she'll get better. And the non-religious Jew, what does he know? He goes, he went to get it. Chipped off a little rock off the Kotel, which is a Isur Deoraita, meaning it's a violation of the Torah. This is where we learn it from. This is the source. He takes the chip off of the wall. No one notices. It's obviously a big wall, big rocks. He takes it. He brings it to the guy. The guy gives it to his wife. His wife dies instantly. So obviously the non-Jew is not so happy. He gives him back the rock. The Jew, what is he going to do with the rock? He keeps it in his house. He's not going to go back to Jerusalem and put it back. Over time, that Jew actually did tshuva. And he learned that you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to go to the Kotel with it. So he called Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, I believe, or one of the people connected to him, and he told him that he's doing tshuva and ta-ta-ta, and he told him that he has this rock. What do I do with it? He said, well, the first thing you do is bring it back to the Kotel. You actually have to bring back the rock to the Kotel. The other thing we learned from this is that you're also not allowed to destroy a Bet Knesset. Unfortunately, there's something that happened this week in Israel. It's very sad, but true, it's happening. There was a big lawsuit in the West Bank. There was a community of Jews that had a Bet Knesset for some time now. That after they built it and after they worshipped there, for some time, I think something like 100 families are worshipping over there. It's an area of Israel in the West Bank that specifically, from what I read about it, that specifically caters to Americans that are doing Aliyah to Israel. And one day, this Arab decided that he doesn't like that they're there because he believes that they're on his family's land. And he had some documents to say so, and they went to court. And the anti-Jewish Israeli government voted in his favor. And there was a video that was published a couple of days ago of the people of that congregation crying hysterically as they're taking the Sifrei Torah out of the Bet Knesset before the Israeli government demolishes the Bet Knesset. The enemy is within. When people are far from Torah, there's no end to what can happen. And that's the reason why Hashem told Avraham Avinu that his children are going to be either like the stars or the sand. How can we be both? There's a lot of both of them. There's not that many Jews, but there's a lot of both of them. So if you're referring to quantity, we're missing a few. If you guys remember, we talked about in previous Shurim that the quantity of stars was already written in Gemara in Masechet Brachot. When Am Yisrael was complaining to Hashem how he forgot us after he destroyed the Bet HaMikdash, that even a husband that divorces his wife still remembers the good times. And Hashem told him, I built this world, this galaxy, this universe, it's divided into 12 parts, and each of the 12 parts have 30 legions, and each 30 legions have 30 parts, and so on and so forth. It gives them a bunch of numbers. And eventually ends with 365,000 stars are within each one of these sections. If you do the mathematical calculation of all of these numbers, about a dozen or so numbers, you get to a total of 10 to the 18th power, or the exact number is 1064340, and then 12 zeros. That's the exact number of stars in the universe. When we first published this number in the Gemara, that was one of the ways that the Goyim laughed at us. Said, oh, we only see 800 stars. See, there's a mistake in your Torah, in your little Gemara over here. Oh, it's a kid's book. There's mistakes in it. Because back then we didn't know how many stars. We just saw 800. You fast forward a few hundred years, you get to the 1600s. A person by the name of Galileo Galilei came out with a telescope. And he said, oh, it's not 800. It's a few million. You fast forward another 400 years. In 1994, NASA came up with a research, and then later on, another university came up with a similar research, and they came up with a number very, very much similar to the number that the Jewish Torah wrote 2,000 years ago, 10 to the 17th power and 10 to the 19th power. So they're getting closer to the truth we already had when that kind of number was not even part of our imagination, even, let alone part of our day-to-day life. So again, another way that we see that everything is already in the Torah, regardless of what you're looking for. But going back to Avraham Avinu, he says, Hashem is telling us we're going to be like the stars, we're going to be like the sand. How can we be both? Chazal is explaining to us is that a righteous Jew can get as high as the stars, meaning his potential is endless. Every Jew could be the next Moshe Rabbeinu. You want to be like Moshe Rabbeinu? Do what Moshe Rabbeinu did. Have emunah like Moshe Rabbeinu had. Have mesirut nefesh like Moshe Rabbeinu had. Do what he did, and you could be like Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu left everything. For what? He had money. He had anything he wanted. What did he leave everything for? For God. And for 40 years he's leading a nation that doesn't stop complaining about him. 40 years he's doing them everything that's possible. He's getting them food from Shamayim. They don't want the food from Shamayim. We want meat. But you could make it taste like meat. No, we want specifically meat. He gets them a cloud to wash their clothes and carry them so they don't have pain in their feet. They complain about that too. He gets them a stream of water to follow them. It stops working for a little bit as a punishment technically because they didn't mourn the death of his sister Miriam, the prophet. They say, what did you bring us here, to kill us? It stopped working for a few minutes. Relax. So this same guy that's being complained about fought for them day and night for 40 years. You want to be like him? Do what he did. Fight for Am Yisrael. Get people closer to God. That's the potential. What's the other one? What's the sand? Someone that doesn't have emunah. Someone that's using their own logic to decide which mitzvot they're going to keep and which mitzvot they're not going to keep. Shabbat, yeah, it's nice. I like it. I take a break from work once a week. No problem. Kosher, I heard it's healthy. I'll keep kosher. Tefillin, whenever I have time. Nida with my wife? No, I need to be with her all month. That God is going to understand me. He's going to understand that I need to be with my wife 30 days a month. He's going to understand. It's not what he's saying here. It's not what he's saying. So, that kind of guy, a woman, he says it's going to be like the sand. Because eventually what's going to happen is that as they start cutting different little pieces, each generation that follows cuts even more pieces. And eventually it gets to the point that they decide to have the enemy inside the government, like we have in the Israeli government right now, unfortunately, and to have the enemy win the lawsuit to destroy our Beit Knesset on our land. That's how far we can get, like the sand. And it's not because they're fools. It's not because they have any hidden agenda. They're public about this. When you're far from Hashem, there's no end. to how much of an anti-Torah person you can be. And that's why the biggest problems that we have, unfortunately, throughout all of our generations, not just today, the biggest enemy we've always had is ourselves. And that's the reason why every one of us is responsible, not just for themselves, but for the people around them. If you know some Torah and mitzvot, if you can help somebody keep some Torah and mitzvot, you're responsible to do so. You have to do so. You have to convince people to learn Torah. You have to convince people to keep mitzvot. You can't just say, listen, I'm keeping everything. Leave me alone. I'm going to do my thing. Let them break their head. Let them get to where I worked really hard to get to where I want. Let them do the same thing I did. Whenever they want, they'll get to it. That's against the Torah. You can't just worry about yourself. We're all one nation. Somebody very, very important to me and someone that I respect dearly told me recently, you know what, Yaron? I see you're getting some people to follow you on YouTube. And I see you're getting some people that like the shiurim. And sometimes you have a lot of people that come to the shiur, and sometimes you have less people that come to the shiur. I have an idea. You were a big businessman in the past. So why don't you talk about business? Why don't you talk about business in the shiur? Have a half hour for Torah. Tell them whatever you want to tell them about the Parashat, about the Musar, about Mesilat Yesharim, whatever it is. And then an hour and a half, talk about business. Give them ideas. Give them ideas about business, how to make more money, how to hire, fire, all these different things. You know business, I mean. And I thought about it for a second. I try to connect business whenever it's relevant. If something is relevant, I try to connect it. But I thought about it for a second. Technically, for marketing purposes, it's a brilliant idea. If I started pitching business, the viewership on the internet will catapult. People want to know about business. Whether they're Jewish or not is irrelevant. Because business is relevant to everyone. But then you have to ask yourself, who am I working for? The viewers or him? If I'm working for the viewers, I have to give them what they want. If I'm working for Hashem Yitbarach, I have to give them what they need. There's plenty of rabbis in the world today that talk about things that are not so hard. Psychology, different things that are not necessarily life-changing, different halachot, different good qualities that a person should have, shlom bayit, and things like that. Business, relationships, science. We try to cover a lot of those things, but my main goal is not necessarily to get people to listen to me and have my Facebook account, or Google account, or Twitter account become very popular. B'ezrat Hashem it will, but the key is for people to do tshuva. The key is, like I said earlier, is for people to be impacted by the shiur. So if I tell you the truth, because that's what God said, you may not like it, but that's what God said. Talk to Him. But if I can get you to keep one extra mitzvah, I think it's much more valuable than me helping you make $1 extra or $1 extra $1 million. There's plenty of people that you can get business advice from. Whenever it's relevant, B'ezrat Hashem, I'll give it to you. But I think overall, we need more Jews in the world, not business people. So that's the reason why I will do my best, B'ezrat Hashem, to continue just talking about strictly Torah, not necessarily business. The next thing is another proof of the Torah's divinity, which is when Hashem talks about kosher. He he's talking about the different foods that we're allowed to eat and not allowed to eat. ואכלת בשר כי ברכת אדוני אלוהיך אשר נתן לך בכל שעריך הטמא והטהור יאכלנו כצבי וחי. He's telling us that we're going to eat meat, and then he's discussing the different types of meat that we're allowed to eat. And here's a very interesting part, is that it mentions the only 4 animals, as far as meat is concerned, there are only 4 animals that have one sign. In order for an animal to be kosher, they have to have 2 of the signs: split hooves and chewing its cud. But there's only 4 animals out of all the animals. There are over 2 million species in the world, by the way, that we know of. But out of all of those species, Hashem is telling us there are only 4 that will have only one of those signs, meaning that everyone else will not have either one of the signs. Those animals are the pig, the camel, the rabbit, and the herrings. The interesting part of it is that if a man wrote this Torah, they wouldn't dare mention the animals' names. Because they would say somebody at some point will find another animal that has one of these signs. And then that would mean that there's a mistake in the Torah. And then people are not going to follow me anymore. So this is again another proof. A second proof, we're going to try to move quicker because we're running out of time, is when he talks about fish. Hashem is telling us that we are allowed to eat all fish that have fins and scales. Then Chazal explains to us is that you will find a fish with fins but no scales, but you will never find a fish with just scales and no fins. So we know that there is everything that we have in land, we have in the water. And there's probably even more so there than here. The water is more than 70% of the globe. There are many species that we're still discovering today. There are much research that's being done on these species. People, different scientists are constantly trying to modify reality. But until this day, the promise that Hashem said of that you will never find a fish with scales but no fins still stands. So obviously, again, this is another way that Hashem is telling us that He's the one that determines whether there is something is going to happen or not, whether a species is going to exist or not. Moving back into the idol worship again, another interesting part is this is again, this is in this week's Parashat. It's another interesting thing in regards to connecting Christianity, Islam to the Torah. Is in chapter 13, starts with the 2nd verse. כי יקום בקרבך נביא, או חולם חלום, ונתן עליך אות או מופת. So it says, if there should stand up in your midst a prophet or a dreamer of a dream. These are 2 different people. It's not the same person. There's a prophet and there's a dreamer of a dreamer. One of the things that Jesus is considered is a prophet. Some consider him a god, some consider him Mashiach, which is, I guess, a prophet. And then the dreamer of a dream. Who dreamt a dream? Muhammad. Christianity. So he's telling us this is going to happen. Hashem is already telling us this is going to happen. And He will produce to you a sign or a wonder. They'll perform miracles perhaps, which is what Jesus is claimed to have done. And the sign or the wonder comes about, meaning it actually happens. It doesn't necessarily mean that every prophet, every false prophet doesn't necessarily need to be someone that's not able to do things. There's been many false prophets. There's a pretty big book about false prophets in Judaism. And some of them can actually do stuff. Just because someone can do tell you about a prophecy that's going to happen, or tell you an event that's going to happen, or even perform some form of magic, doesn't mean that they're real. Judaism is not about prophecies or magic. Judaism is about the Torah. If any prophet, even if Eliyahu Navi himself comes and he tells you, listen, from now on you don't need to keep kosher. He's not really Eliyahu Navi and he's a false prophet and you have to kill him immediately. But a prophet does have the ability to temporarily change halakha. If he tells you, listen, today, since you're at war, you don't need to eat, you don't have to eat kosher. So for today, it's okay. But if he says there's a permanent law of the Torah changes, then he's a false prophet. Also, there's a gematria in this paragraph. B'kirbecha Navi has the same gematria as Aisha Ubna, the woman and her son. The woman and her son is Mary and Jesus' son. So he's telling you that this prophet of which he spoke to you, saying, let us follow gods of others that you did not know, and we will worship them. Meaning anyone that's going against the Torah, what do you do with them? Last verse in this particular paragraph, verse 6. And that prophet and that dreamer of a dream shall be put to death. For he had spoken perversion against Hashem your God, who takes you out of the land of Egypt. So obviously we're not supposed to go and kill every single Christian person we know, or every Islamic person that we know. But if the Sanhedrin were still around at the time of either one of these people, that would be their punishment. Unfortunately today, there are two forms of idol worship that are very popular. One is people that fall for these crooks that pretend that they're Jewish but they're really Christian. They call themselves Jews for Jesus. Some of them even wear a kippah and a talit and entice people with money. Just in Israel, they spend over $300 million a year trying to convert Jews into Christianity. Imagine we had $300 million a year for kiruv, making people do tshuva. I think within a year we'd probably have all of Am Yisrael become religious. But the Yetzer Hara has a lot more money. The Yetzer Hara is very rich. So this is important because even the best of us can fall for these things. Some people fall for it because they don't know anything about Torah. And unfortunately in our generation, very few people know anything about Torah. And some people fall for it because it's enticing. Maim gnuvim impactul. Stolen water is always sweeter. This is why, also in Masechet Sotah, it asks, when someone, a Sotah is a woman that's accused of cheating on her husband, committing adultery. So the Gemara asks, what happened after she's accused? So, the answer is, you give the husband 2 Talmidim Chachamim to take him to Jerusalem, because he lives in a different city. Not everybody lives in Jerusalem. Let's say he lives in Netanya. So you want to give him 2 Talmidim Chachamim to take him all the way to Jerusalem to the Bet HaMikdash, so they can go through the test with the water. They give her the bitter water with Hashem's name in it. They have her drink it. And if she's cheated on her husband, she blows up and dies. If she didn't cheat, she gets a blessing from the Kohen HaGadol. So the Gemara asks, wait a minute. Why do you need these two Talmidim Chachamim? What, the husband doesn't know the way? It's too far for him? What does he need them for? Gemara asks, no. We're worried that he's going to be with her. Cohabit with her. What do you mean? She just found out that she cheated on him. Why would he even want to be with her? Maybe you're really scared that one of the Talmidim Chachamim, you're sending two Talmidim Chachamim instead of one, because you're scared that if there's only one, he'll beat up the husband or wait for him to go to the bathroom and he's going to go with the woman. That's why you're sending two Talmidim Chachamim. You don't really trust the Talmidim Chachamim, maybe. Says, no, we're not worried about Talmidim Chachamim. We're worried about the husband. So I ask, why are you worried about the husband? If you trust the husband to be alone with his wife when she's nida, you're not allowed to be with her. You trust him. It's not like every rabbi comes to your houses and say, oh, it's time of the month. Your wife is not allowed to you. I'm going to live with you this month, or these next 12 days, until she's allowed. Last I checked, no rabbi comes to anybody's house and tells them this. It's not halakha, right? They trust you. They say, listen, it's your responsibility. You know you're not allowed to be with a woman that's not allowed to you. It's your responsibility to keep it. Why? Because the punishment is karet. Punishment is severe. It's as severe as it gets. Someone that sleeps with a woman that's not allowed to him, it's karet. Karet means death penalty. So if you trust a guy to not be with his wife on a karet, why don't you trust a guy to not be with his wife when technically he's not really 100% sure she cheated on him? So technically the violation doesn't have the same penalty as being with a woman he's not allowed to be with. It's technically still his wife. The punishment is not even close. It's not karet. No, you don't understand. Yes, we trust him to be with his wife alone when she's nida. But we don't trust him when she's sotah. Why? Because when she's nida, he knows that it's only a matter of a few days before she's not going to be nida anymore. So he's not going to be with her. He's just going to wait. He's going to hold himself. He's going to be able to contain himself. Because he knows, I'm going to wait a few days. And then she's going to be back to me. But when she's possibly sotah, he's thinking to himself, if she's really sotah, she's going to die in a few days when she drinks the water. So this could be potentially the last time I have a chance to be with her. So it's much more interesting to him to be with something that he may never have again. That's what we get. Stolen water is sweeter. Stolen water is sweeter. That's our nature. We want something we can't have. That's our nature. So, when you have people enticing you with money, it's very easy to fall for it. And that's what happens with a lot of Jews. That's what happens with a lot of Jews. And that's one form of idol worship, which is people connecting to false religions. After being misled. And digging themselves a hole that many can't get out of. That's one form of idol worship. Another form of idol worship is rabbis. Sometimes, as we talked about earlier today, I don't know if it was on tape or before, but sometimes people follow their rabbis, and these people are tzaddikim. We're not talking about the fake rabbis anymore. We're talking about real rabbis. Real rabbis that live now or have lived in the past. They connect to them in a very, very deep level, which is a good thing. But sometimes people take it too far. Take it too far to the point where they believe that someone that died 20, 30 years ago is still alive, or is the Mashiach. And they believe that you need to connect to him in order to connect to God. Or someone that died something close to 100 years ago, you need to go visit his grave every year, and if you can't connect to him, there's no way that you can connect to God. This has become very popular, unfortunately, in our generation, but it's not the first time it's happened. It's happened in the past as well. People turn their rabbis into idols, and they get to a point where they believe their own nonsense so much that if you put them in a lie detector test, they would pass. They believe it's true. They believe their rabbi is the Mashiach. They believe their rabbi is possibly even a god. And that's idol worship. And there's many of them. We don't need anyone to be the middleman between us and God. That's an outright part of the laws of Judaism. It's one of the 13 principles of faith. So if anyone ever tells you that you need to do anything specific as far as pray to any particular rabbi, give any particular rabbi something, do anything like that in order to connect to God, then you know that they are either crazy or don't know what they're talking about, or combination. So that's unfortunately very, very popular, not only amongst the unaware, ignorant Jews, people that don't learn Torah, but very, very common amongst even some religious Jews. They just fall into that trap. And the reason why a lot of these things happen is because everyone is always looking for a shortcut. Everyone wants to know that there's an easy way out. So if I don't do everything, because Hashem, for this blessing that he mentioned in this Parashat, he wants too much. So if I don't succeed, I want a way out. If I can't do all of it, I want to hedge myself. And people do all these strange things in order to make their own rules, and it just, listen, Hashem doesn't necessarily reward us for being perfect. He didn't create a perfect being. He created us as an imperfect being. One of the examples is the fact that we were born with most people at least, were born with the Orla still on us, and we have to do a Brit Milah on our 8th day. If not having the Orla, what is it called in English?
Foreskin. Huh?
Foreskin. Not having the foreskin was such an important thing. Why didn't Hashem create us without it, like he did with Moshe Rabbeinu and a few other tzaddikim throughout history? Because Hashem wanted to create us as an imperfect, so we could become partners with him in making ourselves perfect, as early as 8 days old. Next thing you'll see is that a lot of people, when you mention the word Jewish, there was actually a research done recently, I saw a video somebody made, asking a bunch of strangers different words and what they relate themselves to, what they relate those words to, with the purpose of eventually saying the word Jewish. And what do they relate the word Jewish to? Most people relate the word Jewish to money. We would hope one day we get to a point and say Jewish, religious, Jewish, righteous, Jewish, honest, but so far we have the reputation of money. This is also where it comes from. One of the blessings that we're getting from Hashem, for Hashem your God has blessed you and he has told you, you will lend to many nations, but you will not borrow. And you will dominate many nations, but they will not dominate you. He's saying that if you do what he says, he's going to reward you with being the lender. There is a, I believe it's here, story I keep forgetting to tell you guys. It's a good story. Let's try to remember. Oh, here it is. You know, everything has a story. If you ever notice, if every one of you guys have a dollar bill in their hand, in their pocket, if you ever noticed on the back of a dollar bill, there's this. No, I have it for you.
Okay.
There's this, which is above the eagle,
Thank you, Tommy. I can see.
there is a bunch of stars. And if you notice, the stars form a bigger star. The bigger star is a Jewish star.
כן?
Voila.
Last time I checked, the dollar wasn't a Jewish thing, was it? So what's the story? There's once a man by the name of Chaim Solomon. Chaim Solomon. Chaim Solomon was a successful merchant, traveled from place to place. He was an entrepreneur. You see it?
Yeah.
You don't see it? Okay.
Yeah. Follow the stars. You want to hide it?
I'll pass this around in a second. It's a bigger version than your dollar.
It's two triangles. Yeah,
מה זה זה?
triangles.
When you see his, it's much easier.
I knew you guys were going to like this one.
לא, לא, it's
Follow the stars.
So there's a person by the name of Chaim Solomon. Lived about almost 300 years ago.
The pyramid too.
He was a very successful man. Chaim's a Jewish name. He was Jewish. So successful that during the Civil War, the American Civil War, one side was running out of money. So what do? They came to Chaim Solomon. Said, we need money. George Washington came to Chaim Solomon. Need money to buy weapons to win this war. Chaim Solomon lent them approximately $600,000 250 years ago. Probably something like, I don't even know the imagination of it. It's probably something like maybe 10, 15 billion dollars in today's money. $600,000. And because of Chaim Solomon, they won the war. And we have America as we have it today. But Jews were never popular people. No one ever liked us throughout history. And that's actually intentional by God. God makes other nations not like us, because if we lived in a place where they like us, it'll be easier for us to assimilate. This is unfortunately what happened in Germany. In the beginning, they liked us. We started acting like them, dressing like them, calling ourselves names like them. And shortly later, 80% of us became partners with them, married to them, having children with them. Hashem didn't like it, so he had the Holocaust happen, and millions of people died. No one likes to hear it, but when they ask, where was God during the Holocaust? The simple answer is that God caused the Holocaust. He was there. He did it. He promised that he will do it in the Torah. In Venice has a very long-standing history, maybe something like 1,500 years. Venice in Italy. It wasn't always part of Italy. Venice used to be a separate country. Venice has a very, very long history, very, very innovative country. You know, it's a city on water. And they also have a very old keilah of Jewish people. But it wasn't always friendly to Jewish people. At some point, a Jewish person was not even allowed to enter the city. But then they realized they need the Jewish money. They wanted to borrow money from them to build their city, to facilitate their trade. So the Jewish guy, okay, you can come for the day. Give us your money and leave. So the Jewish guy came for the day. And they saw that a few of the Jewish people, they're not really listening to the rules. So they didn't want to tell everyone, listen, they're not listening to the rules. So they made a rule, okay, so you're allowed to stay here for a few days. But then they saw you need more of this Jewish money. So he could stay for a little longer, and eventually they gave him a little community. What do they call the community? Ghetto. That's where the name ghetto was formed, in Venice. The very same ghetto that you probably all recognize as the word that defines the Shoah, that defines the Holocaust, was invented in Venice over 1,000 years ago as a place that the Jews would live. And the Jews built a community, and till this day, the ghetto has the Jewish people there. Not as many, there's only maybe like 500 or 1,000 left. But they have 4 major synagogues. 2 are still active. Beautiful places. And they have the tallest buildings in Venice. Why do they have the tallest buildings? Because the people from Venice didn't want them to go into any other place in Venice. So when the families grew, they had to build. They couldn't have more land, so they had to build taller. They had to add more floors. So despite them wanting our money, and Hashem giving us the success with our money, Venice, the people from Venice didn't like us so much, so they would put up marks on us to identify that we're Jewish, wear strange hats, put certain letters. This has happened throughout history. So Chaim Solomon wasn't alone when he came to America, and he ended up lending $600,000 to facilitate the civil war that's going to win the war. Without him, they were going to lose the war. But since he wasn't so popular because he was Jewish, giving him an open award and saying, listen, we won the war due to this guy, not going to be such a popular thing to do. So they did something in hiding. A dollar bill that you have has the Jewish star. That's where the Jewish star
It's
came
on a
from.
dollar bill, only on a dollar bill?
From what I know, yes.
Only a dollar
There you
bill.
go. There's the dollar bill. Is the thing. Oh, and by the way, the $600,000 was never paid back.
Ah, so
They never paid Chaim Solomon back.
With interest.
Yeah, share. Don't be, share the picture.
Is it Civil War or Revolutionary?
Revolutionary.
North, South, Wall?
No, Revolutionary War.
Sorry? North, South?
No, Revolutionary. Against British.
Hey,
Never. That's interesting. Why would they publicize it in history class at school? It's like kind of things they don't tell you. I want to
What's
love.
the guy's name? Solomon? Chaim Solomon?
Chaim Solomon. Chaim Solomon got Akarat Tov. So Hashem tells us we can learn from everything. Chazal tells us we can learn from everything. So even the non-Jews can teach us something in the story of Chaim Solomon, which is one of the purposes of why I told you this story, which is something called Akarat Tov, positive recognition. You can find out more about Chaim Solomon after the shiur. Stop with the phones for a second.
Revolutionary word, right?
Wikipedia,
What do you think? I made up the story? I'm not that creative.
Listen, we gotta check the sources.
Check the sources. Check the sources. So, one of the things we can learn from this story is something called Akarat Tov. Recognizing good. When something good happens, and it comes from a certain place, someone does a favor to you, or for you, you have to appreciate it. Show them positive feedback. Return the favor when the time comes. Because there are certain types of people that the Gemara tells us Hashem hates. One of them is called a kfui tova. Someone who's ungrateful. A person that's ungrateful is a person that Hashem hates. I don't want to be part of that list. I bet you don't either. Why is akarat tov, why is appreciation of good, of a favor, so important to God? Why is it so much so that the opposite of it is a person that Hashem hates? Because Hashem says that if you can't appreciate the person that you can see doing you a favor, how can you appreciate all the wonders that I do for you that you can't see? A person that's ungrateful, it's nearly impossible for him to have emunah. It's nearly impossible for him to have close connection to God. Because ungratefulness comes from the very same source as ga'ava. We already talked about that earlier, what ga'ava leads to. So, the key is for us to make sure that we not only show appreciation to the people around us, the wife that makes you coffee in the morning that you don't think is such a big deal, the kids that jump on Abba to say hello that you don't think is such a big deal, the guy that's giving a shiur and telling you a story that you're checking on your phone in the middle of the shiur for, the guy that gave you a ride that you just thought, what's the big deal? He lives right next to me. No such thing as no big deal. If someone gives you $1 to buy a coffee, you should appreciate it. You should never take it for granted. You should never think it's a given. Because $1 can take you far, far. $1 can mean the world to somebody else. And I'll tell you a personal story. Before I became very wealthy, I was very, very poor. How poor? I was a very independent person, meaning that no one was involved with my business. I was going to succeed. I was young, confident, borderline arrogant. Maybe arrogant, I just didn't realize it, not so sure. But I knew I was going to succeed. And I wasn't going to take no for an answer. So when I got into the investment business, first worked for other people to pay my dues. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that some people are liars, cheaters, and the bottom of the earth that take advantage of everything that's going to give them the opportunity to. And as a young, naive, 18 or 19-year-old kid, I get into the business and I spent a couple of years in the business paying my dues for something that should have never even happened. So I'm in the business for a couple of years already, and eventually I get to the point where I'm given the ability to start my own practice, meaning work within a firm and manage my own clients finally. I'm in the business for maybe 2 or 3 years at the time already, but I never made any money for myself. I only made the people around me rich, but myself, I think I was making $1,000 a month or something like that. Interesting, because when I was 17, I was already making $100,000 selling electronics. So I downgraded just because of this dream. Anyway, I'm given the opportunity to become a broker, to manage my own clients. I have some experience now. I'm in the business for a few years. The problem is, the same guy that's telling me that I can work within his office become this broker that I want to be, it also tells me that I have to give him something, a few $1,000s every month, whether I produce or not. I have to pay him rent and computer fee and this fee and that fee and all these fees. Now at this very moment, at this time of my life, I think I had a second job that I would work on the side. I think I maybe had something like $2,000 in the bank. When he tells me, listen, you have to pay me all these fees, I'm not exactly excited because I know that if I don't produce right away, not only is my $2,000 gone, but I'm gonna owe money. That's not a fun thing. So, for the first several months, well, actually, first 2 months, a month after I became, independent, September 11th happens. So it was not exactly an ideal time to start a business, but Baruch Hashem, we continued. But for the next 6 months or so, pretty much most of the day I would work from something, I'd start my day around 5 o'clock in the morning, finish around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, sleep a couple of hours, and just work like a dog. But all of this work was just to pay him. He'd make money, and I would have, I don't know, maybe like $200 a month left, $500. And it got so bad that at one point I had $35 left in my name. $35, a car that I had to sell in order to pay rent, and nothing else. And every day I would borrow $1 from one of the guys in the office so I could buy a donut and coffee.
Yeah.
And that was my food for the entire day. So $1 goes a long way. And that's why when I became successful shortly later, and I opened up my own company, or became the third largest producing broker in the country for that company, I took him on my team. When I opened my company, I hired the same guy. He was a terrible broker. He was awful, horrible, lazy, had many problems. I helped him in every way possible on a personal level, and from Hashem and Hashem, how many problems he had that I tried helping him. But I could never forget that he gave me $1 a day for a couple of months. And that was the best dollar I ever had. So you never know what $1 means. You never know what a small favor would mean. You never know what a ride means. Akarat tov, showing appreciation, is important. If you didn't give me that $1, I wouldn't have the story for you. So even you should be appreciative to this guy.
With the star, David.
Ultimate purpose of life is to connect to Hashem Yitbarach. Ultimate purpose of life is to believe in Hashem Yitbarach to the point where you know He's part of your life rather than just think He's part of your life. When you know that He's part of your life, it's easier to not only keep the mitzvot, but it's easier to grow as a Jew. It's easier to reach happiness. It's easier to succeed in every way, shape, or form. And that critical part is missing. It's impossible. The defining line between success and failure in connection to Hashem is thinner than a hair. It's either you believe to the point of knowing, or you're conveniently believing whenever you feel like it. Which means not believing. Because the Hashem that's in the Torah, He didn't tell us believe in me 3 months a year. He didn't tell us believe in me only during the holidays. He didn't say believe in me only when it comes to you need something. Except Parashat. Parashat is beyond me. I can't take your Parashat. You have to make your Parashat. That means you have to work on Shabbat, and that means you have to work on the holidays. Yeah, I can. Hashem created the heaven and the earth, but when it came to Parashat, you can't handle it. When you believe in Hashem to the point of Him becoming one with you, there's no limit to how far you can grow. There's no limit to how happy you can be. And your desire for material becomes non-existent. So, what we really want to do is try to do our best by having more kavanah in our prayers, more kavanah in our learning, more kavanah in every one of the things that we do for Hashem, but in essence for our own benefit. Because when we have these kavanot, when we have an understanding of what we're doing, when we have a process that's not robotic, it's much easier to succeed and it's much easier to connect to God. And B'ezrat Hashem, this shiur, again for the health of all of the people we mentioned earlier, but also for our own zchut of learning some Torah at almost 11 o'clock at night on a Tuesday, can help us get one step closer to Hashem.
תגיד לו שבסדר.
في حنانية
Good.
في حنانية
ניסן, יא מבין, יא מחם.
مرة حفيظ
מה,
למען
תזכור,
שיעור
תורה,
תורה
ויהודי.
ויהודי קדיש ישראל. בקו. ויגדל וקדש ורבה. ועמד יברח חוטא בימיך ומוציא בספר וקנה וקרא משיחי. וחי יחול במקום חי יחול ישראל ועז מקריב עם רומן. ויתעלה ויתעלה שווה לקודשה בריחו. אלא מכל בחזרה שירתם. איש ואחד מלאכת אדם ועלמה ואמרו אמן. על ישראל ועל רבנם ועל תלמידיהם ועל כל תלמידי תלמידי עשו ברתה קדישתה. דיבר סלמים בכל אתר ויתר. יהיה נכון חינם החזר רחמים קודם מן שמעיה ואברהם ואמרו אמן. יש גם רבה משמעיה חמסים שעומד חמה שזה ברפואה ובנוסח פרה. ורבח מהצלה לאנו לכל עמו ישראל ואמרו אמן. ששם במרומיו וברחמם יעשה שלום עלינו. ועל כל עמו ישראל ואמרו אמן.
ברוכים.
רצית ערבית.